Hello, good day everyone. So welcome back to my channel once again. This is Joe Bren. I am Mrs. Herrera. So I am from Leyte. So welcome back to my channel. My channel discusses a lot of things. This is video learning lessons for all my students and also for my non-students. Okay, by the way, I would like to say thank you to all my subscribers. Promised I'll be sharing to you all my video lessons. So for today's, I'll be sharing to you our lesson 5 discussion in the subject of Philippine popular culture. So when you say popular culture, this is the culture that we have now. This is our present culture. It is changing depending on the environment or the society that we are in. So that is popular culture. So today, our lesson 5 discusses another topic. So we will be talking about lesson 5, cultural, social, and political change. So as you cultures are both predisposed to change and resistant to it. Meaning it really depends on me if I will adapt to that certain kind of culture, new culture, or if I will become resistant to that new culture. So resistance can come from my habit, from your habit, religion, science, and the integration and interdependence of cultural traits. So cultural change can have many causes. So it comes from our environment, the society that we are in, the inventions, the new discovery, and the contact with other culture. So that's why we can't expect that our culture will not change. Culture is predisposed to change. And as time passes by, our culture will also change depending on the trend, depending on the new environment that we are in. And it's a natural phenomenon. So social change, when you talk about culture, we also have that social change. So before, our values is very different compared to what we have now. Before we are like this, but as time passes by, our culture, our social change is also changing as time passes by. So we cannot tell or we cannot dictate that culture should be fixed. It is not static, it is a dynamic entity when you talk about culture. So because of that alteration, because of the changes of culture, because of a lot of because of the significant changes when it comes to our behaviors, our habit, our personalities, sociologists are the persons who are studying societies. Sociologist is trying to check the long-term effects of social change in terms. So there is a cultural gap when you talk about social change. So in today's sociologists readily acknowledge the vital role that social movements play in inspiring discontented members of a society to bring about social change. So because of that idea that we are trying to discover a lot of things, we are trying to do a lot of things. This kind of change is played also a very important role in trying to inspire others to create new things, to do a lot of things, to bring about social change. Again, when you think about social change, it's also very important for us to change, to create new inventions, to try a lot of things, to experiment, because that's also part of how we grow as a community, as a big society. So if they say there is nothing permanent in this world except change, and that is true. Society, the people, we are the people of culture. Since we are the people of culture, we are called part of the society. Society is not at all static phenomena, but a dynamic entity. So again, when you talk about society, it is changing. It will change from time to time. The term social change is used to indicate the change that takes place in human interaction and interrelation. Because we are interacting to one another, therefore we are also changing. We are influencing one another from one person to another person. We are sharing a lot of ideas. That's why social change played a greater role on how we interact and we do some interpersonal relations with others. So every day we are interacting with another person. And since we are interacting with another person, therefore it is really impossible not to experience change. So society is a web of different social relationship. So I have my own social relationship, how I interact with you, how you interact with me. It's a different social relationship. So social change obviously means the change in the system of social relationship. So we need to change to the better, change in a good way, change in how we think about ourselves. We need to be good at changing ourselves to become a better version of ourselves, because the society is changing, nature is changing, humans is changing, we are all changing. It depends on you if you will accept that change or if you will resist that kind of change. So cultural change is broader than social change. When you talk about cultural change, is the culture, there is cultural changes. It is bigger than the social change. And social change is only part of it. So in short, we have the mother. The mother is our cultural change. We can observe that the cultural changes, but once we are affected to it, that becomes our social change. We become part of it because of what we see, what we observe in our culture. And once you accept it, that becomes your social change. You are changing because of what you see and what you observed. So all social changes are cultural changes. So everything you do now, these are all part of your cultural changes. But all cultural changes need not necessarily be social changes, because then again, whatever I observe, whatever I see now, it depends on me if I will accept that or I will resist that. But everything you do now is part of social changes, because you are interacting, because you are doing it what others are doing. So cultural changes can be called social changes only when they affect human relations and the social organizations cause some variation in them. Again, it will only become cultural changes if people are affected to it. So cultural changes can be called social changes if you are affected to it. If you are doing it, if you are following it, that becomes social changes. So cultural environment is the man-made environment. So what do I mean by that? Cultural environment is the man-made environment because we are the one changing our own culture. We are the ones creating new cultures. So depending on how we view things, depending on how we see things. And that is the reason why we have this a lot of changes now, a lot of innovations, because it is us who created that kind of change. There are people who will accept that change because they loved it. They see the value in it, but there are also people who are trying to resist it because they don't see the value in anything that we do. So change in human needs and desire influences cultural change. So there are processes of social and cultural change. So number one is we have innovation. What is innovation? This is the creation of new ideas, new techniques, and new behaviors. So that is innovation. And for me, because we are now living in a very fast-paced environment, we need a lot of innovations on how to do things, because we are now living in a very fast-paced. We want to do things instantly. That's why we have our new cell phones, iPhones, because we want to connect instantly to one another. So that's a perfect example of innovations. Before there's no cell phone, but now we have a lot of new branded cell phones, not just to catch up with the trend. And number two is discovery. Discovery is it is only when society accepts it and adapts regularly in their everyday life. For example, discovery, when we try to discover a lot of things, especially in terms of technology, economics, culture. So there's a lot of things. When we try to discover a lot of things, that is discovery. Discovery is one of the prime process of social and cultural change. because we humans, we are a rational being, we think a lot, we do a lot of things. So when we try to discover a lot of things and when we try to adapt it to ourselves, to our everyday life, and that becomes a discovery, is the spread of cultural attributes from one culture to another because of our regular contact between different cultural groups. So when you talk about diffusion, is the widespread of one culture to another culture, and we try to adapt it to ourselves also. For example, if we have a new cell phones, new thing, and we try to buy that, to accept that, to adapt to it, so that is diffusion. There is widespread of cultural attributes from one culture to another culture. And another process of cultural change, number four, is acculturation. Acculturation is in which two or more than two cultural groups come into continuous contact. For example, in a simple word, when the system of culture, the system of life in a culture begins to change under the influence of a developed culture, this is the process of acculturation. Acculturation meaning we are adapting because of our continuous contact to that culture, we are adapting to it. We are influenced to it, right? Influence of a developed culture. Okay, for example, when if you are a Filipina and you migrate to another country and you need to adapt to their own culture, and then when you go back, there's also a culture that you are adapting it to yourself, and that is acculturation. Trying to get influenced to another culture because of the continuous contact. So the fifth one is modernization. Modernization is the process which indicates the adoption of the modern ways of life and values. So we are trying to become modernized. We are try to adapt. So it refers to an attempt on the part of the people to adapt themselves to the present time, our conditions, our needs, our style, and ways in general. For example, this one, teaching. Teaching online. Teaching online is not really my thing, but because of the pandemic, because of the struggles that we are experiencing last 2 years ago, I need to make some adjustment when it comes to teaching. That is modernization. I need to be modernized. I don't have to stick to the traditional way of teaching. So in my own mindset, I need to embrace the idea of modernization. I need to embrace technology. I need to adapt it to myself to be more comfortable talking online. And for me, which is good because of that good mindset in adapting and trying to become modernized, I become so confident talking online, discussing a lot of things. And it's one way of boosting my confidence dealing with my online or offline students. So there are factors of social and cultural change. So what are the reasons why we are changing like this? Why there is social and cultural change? Number one is there is a shift form from rural to urban life. Yes, because of the technologies, because of the industrialization, there is a sudden shift from rural to urban life. So number two is there's also a sudden shift from agricultural to industrial economy. So from investing into our agricultural products, there's a sudden change to modernize it, to change it to some industrial economy, to make it faster. Okay, so number three is the introduction of democratic pattern and their focus on individual freedom and initiative. There is change because we want to experience freedom, because we want to do our own thing, and we need to enhance our own creativity, our own ways of doing things. That's why there is change, right? So before, if you are not so equipped with laptop or with computers, so because it is highly needed to be get familiarized with the new technologies, you have to adapt to it, and you try to become more creative, more initiative in how to do things instead of sticking to the more traditional way of teaching. Number four, there is a change because there is a keen competition for economic survival so that both parents are forced to work. There is a change because of economic survival, because of the inflation, because it's it's very difficult if there is a change because this there is a change because of economic survival. So both parents are forced to work for economic survival. So before, it's okay if your father is the only one who provides for the needs of your family, but now if your father is the only provider, it's really difficult to feed all your family, all your children or family. So both parents are forced to work because of for economic survival. Number five is greater opportunities for personal and professional enhancement. There is change because we need to develop as a person. We need to do professional enhancement. We need to enroll to a much bigger universities. We need to take masters. We need to take doctoral degree. There is change because of greater opportunities for personal and professional enhancement. Number six is increased participation of women in activities outside of the house. So women empowerment. So before, women are just staying in the house. But now women are empowered. We can do a lot of things. We can be competitive. We can participate in any activities outside the house. So we are not just limited to staying in the house. We can do also a lot of things. That's why there is change. So what is the role of communication? What is the role of communication and media in social and cultural change? So there are more challenging responsibilities of media. Yes, when you talk about social, cultural, media played a very vital role in letting us understand the concept of social and cultural change. They are the leading role in transforming people's mindset, the tough face job they ever had. So when we hear a lot of news, good news or bad news, we hear it through media. And because of that information through media, we also learn a lot of things from them. We are also aware of what is happening. We are also aware with what is going on with our society today. So let's go back with media. So media have the potential to supply inputs and insight to political forces. So the mass media have a role in educating people's mind on socio-cultural issues. So since as the media have the potential to mentally prepare people for progressive action and participation, we hear a lot of things through social media, mass media. So we hear a lot of things. What is going on with our country, the trends, the fashions, we hear a lot of things. And that is why media played a vital role in letting us understand the social and cultural change, what is happening in our country, what is happening worldwide. So, because of that role, because we hear a lot of things, there is also what we call diffusion, the diffusion of innovation. So, what does it mean? So, diffusion is a social process through which elements of culture spread from one society or social group to another. It is a process of social change. It also the process which innovations are introduced into an organization or social group, the diffusion of innovations. So things that are spread through diffusion include our ideas, values, concept, knowledge, practices, behaviors, materials, and symbols. So because of the widespread of our culture, there is also what we call diffusion of innovations. We are we are embracing a lot of changes into ourselves, the way we think, our values, our knowledge, practices, our behaviors, our symbols, and our material. So we are influencing one another. The process of diffusion, according to Roger, happens in 5 stages. So the process of diffusion happens in 5 stages. Number one, knowledge. Why there is diffusion? Because of awareness of the innovation. There is knowledge. Number two, why there is diffusion of innovation? Because of persuasion. Because of the interest, because of the influence, and persons begins to become curious and do some research about the new innovation. That is persuasion. Number three is decision. Decision means a person or group evaluates the pros and cons of the innovation. Number four is the implementation. Why there is the process of diffusion? Because leaders introduce the innovation to the social system and evaluate its usefulness. And number five, why there is diffusion of innovation? Because of confirmation. Those in charge decide to continue using it. So, fourth act, people act based on upon their ideas and belief about work. So, number one is education. So, a strong education system is a key to economic growth. So, in general, when you talk about education, education is good. It leads to greater literacy, improves cognitive thinking, and increases the number of people with skills necessary to produce goods in an industrial society. We need a lot of educated people to do this for economic growth. That's why our educational system, they are investing, or they are trying to do good when it comes to our learning literacy. They are trying to convince our children of today to go to school, to take master's, PhD, doctorate degree for personal improvement and for professional development. Number two is occupational norms. So the skills and occupation required to move economic development will change over time, correct? And societies that fail to change their expectations and policies will thwart their development. So when you talk about occupational norms, is we need to change. That's why we need to improve ourselves to be better, because economic development, as time passes by, will change over time. And if we fail to change that expectation, it will also affect our own way of developing ourselves. That's why we need to do better when it comes to our professions, when it comes to our job, when it comes to doing a lot of things for economic growth. Number three is religion. Religion also shape our belief and practices regarding our work, spending, saving, and risk-taking. Fourth is the gender parity. So human talent is a key to a country's productivity. So whether you are a male or a female, so economic growth increases whenever barriers that limits women's full participation in the workforce. So when women, you talk about gender parity, women should be given equal rights, equal opportunity for a profitable work. So they need because women also increases economic growth. So we shouldn't limit women's full participation in the workforce. So women can also do a lot of things. They can also do some changes they can also do some changes in the organization, in whatever they can. So gender parity can economic growth increases if we include women in an organization. The last is individualism and autonomy. So economic development in a culture that supports the belief that an individual through hard work can improve his circumstances, and working towards such improvement is a moral action to take. So when you talk about individualism, if you are trying to give that person opportunity to grow, that person will improve. That person will try to work to improve himself. That is individualism. And trying to give them that freedom, that autonomy to do his work better, a culture that allows for autonomy rather than conformity fosters growth as well. So if we give them their freedom, their autonomy to do their own things rather than keep on following what is the usual things that we do, it can always foster growth as well. So culture, social and political change, it keeps on changing, it keeps on evolving from time to time. It is not fixed, it is not a static entity, it is a dynamic entity. So we need to change to the better, not to the worst. We need to change as a better person. We need to adapt the change that we are in now. But it is also our choice to resist the change that we think it's not good for us. And we also have a choice to do the things that we love to do. We also have the choice to practice our freedom, our individualism, our autonomy, our strength to foster economic growth. Thank you so much for listening. I really do hope that you are learning from all the videos that I've posted. Thank you so much. This is our lesson number 5 in the subject of Philippine popular culture. I hope you are learning a little bit or as much as you learn from this video. It is a big help if you are sending your comments, your likes, or if you prefer to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again for my next video blog. Thank you.